Bases dropped after an exhausting Sunday of soccer in Atlanta and around the world, because you had a Women's World Cup final, you had 2 men's continental finals, you had 3 MLS matches for those of us in the U.S., all kinds of chaos, and lots of things to talk about on an Overreaction Monday. Here's what we're going to try to do today. You know how things can go off the rails, but we're going to try in hour 1 to talk about all 3 from our perspective of Atlanta United, U.S. women's national team, U.S. men's national team. We're going to try to get our basic thoughts out there about those 3 games yesterday. And in hour 2, we're going to get into all of the reactions. So you guys have a little bit of time, but use the Overreaction Monday hashtag on Twitter and tweet at us at Soccer Down Here and share your thoughts on all of it. And we'll get into all of that as we go this morning. Let's start with the local match. Atlanta United, 3-3, New York Red Bulls. Absolute chaos. Atlanta takes a lead. Atlanta gives up the lead. Atlanta fights back and regains the lead, and then Atlanta gives up a goal to end up in a 3-3 draw. Ups and downs all over the place. Where do you want to start, John?
Well, you want to start at the end and work backwards?
We can go in whichever direction you want. Start from the end.
All right. Game time goal should never have happened. Understanding full well, yes, you're caught up in the emotion. Yes, all of these aspects of fighting back and getting the lead at 3-2. Last goal shouldn't have happened. And, I mean, the cross itself, if you want to call it a cross, it was an entry into the area. And I don't know where folks thought they were supposed to be, or in the whole idea of trying to get something done. But yeah, for me, that last goal to make it a 3-3 draw, hopefully you learn from something like that you have to keep your focus for the full 90 plus whatever. And this is that shining example of that.
Got to give credit to New York in the way they approached that last bit, because it wasn't just chaos. They kept their head in that moment, and I feel like Atlanta kind of lost their focus at the end and didn't do the simple things. In that moment, you had Parkhurst and Robinson get caught kind of chasing shadows a bit with runs that were not in dangerous positions. They get pulled away. Those were your 2 center backs. And then Escobar's got 2 because he's got a back post run he's got to worry about that's far more worrisome than the runs that Parkhurst and Robinson took off on. And Lorenowitz was a little lost in terms of organizing as well. You have to be able to handle those situations. And look, it's a crazy emotional swing to go from 2-1 down in a game where you're getting outplayed in your own house to 3-2 up after a goal that should have gone down as one of the biggest moments in club history. That's not an excuse, though, for giving up the goal that you did in that moment. Multiple players get lost and stretched, and it's just too easy for Bradley Wright Phillips, who is a guy that you need to account for at all times. Just way too easy. Full credit to the New York Red Bulls for keeping their head in that moment and going out and rescuing something from the match. It was a special match. I mean, it's, we talked about it coming in last year with Atlanta and Seattle and all the eyeballs that were going to be on that after the Men's World Cup final. And the match didn't deliver because Seattle really had no interest in entertaining or doing anything, and that's their prerogative. That's fine. The Red Bulls and Atlanta just have styles of play that are in complete opposition to one another. And It's almost like a great boxing rivalry or a great MMA rivalry where you just have two fighters that approach it differently, and they just sync up perfectly for an entertainment value if you're a neutral. And that's what Atlanta and New York give you. So you knew this one was going to be entertaining on some level. I don't think anyone expected 3-3 and all of the swings that you had here. I think people could reasonably expect all of the friction and all of those elements of the match. But the drama and the back and forth, it was special, and it's a match that will go down in MLS history in a lot of ways, I think. We'll be very curious to see what the TV rating is, because coming off of probably not a record on the women's match just because of the difference in time zone compared to last time around, but a gigantic number. Anyone who stuck around for this one is going to be entertained and hopefully going to turn in for more matches if they're new to the league. Let's work backwards. So Red Bulls get the goal at the end that Atlanta should not have given up. Atlanta turns the match on its head with 2 goals late. First is a penalty. Second is an unbelievable header. The header, I mean, it's a perfect cross from Franco Escobar, and Joseph Martinez just somehow gets up. His vertical's insane. I would love to see his vertical compared to some of the Hawks if anybody ever wants to set that one up. But to get up and get that header and to place it perfectly, because Robles was in a good position, it's just borderline unsavable. And to have that moment, again, that should have been the moment, one of the moments in club history. It was that special in his return from Copa America. Unbelievable from Martinez to deliver there, but don't lose the Escobar cross either. Just an absolute perfect cross from Escobar.
And now I didn't see this, and I'm going to need independent confirmation of this, but did Joseph actually blow a kiss to Robles?
Yeah, because let's you got to give context. You can't just say something like that and leave it out there. No, he didn't score the goal and blow a kiss to Robles. No, Joseph went to grab the ball out of the goal, and Robles blocked him and kind of gave him a hip check, and I don't really know why, because they were trailing at that point, but anyway, kind of hip checks him and kind of shoves him off, and Joseph just gives up on trying to get the ball and then is walking away as there's some jawing back and forth and blows him a kiss.
Okay, because like I said, I just hear about this moment and I was trying to find some background on it.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Look, I mean, it's a great reaction to somebody jawing at you, but it's not the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 22 story of the day. It's a moment, and it's a great reaction to a game that was incredibly heated, and I mean at that point was a gigantic inferno, but it's not that big of a deal. I'd rather see that than some of the other stuff we saw in the match, for sure.
No doubt. And I feel like I should have started with all of the stuff around Jeff Lorenowitz and a point that you made off air about the decision and the whole process for the retroactive red. I guess I should have started there when it comes to the absolute craziness of the day, ending on that note.
Well, again, that's not the biggest story either, so let's hold that one until we get through the match itself. For those of you who haven't heard it, if I could get the right actual file in, we'll do that. I want you guys to hear the goal from Mike Conti on 92.9 The Game yesterday that would have given Atlanta the win.
Thrown into Vasquez, who dribbles to the edge of the 18, dispossessed. Pot back to the back post. Joseph, the header! Score! Golazo! And Atlanta United has the go-ahead goal in stoppage time!
Just an unbelievable moment that, man, was kind of wasted by the end of it. We'll get into the referee and the red card and that stuff here in just a second. If we're working backwards, you get the penalty before that. I don't think there's a whole lot of complaint on the penalty. Duncan's grabbing Joseph the whole way. I don't even feel like Joseph went down all that easily, but he goes down. And this was something, if you watch the whole match and you go through it, New York at times went down really easily, and they were getting calls. Atlanta at times should have gone down, and they didn't, and they weren't getting calls. In this moment, I don't feel like Joseph throws himself to the ground, but he's getting grabbed as he's breaking between two defenders. He goes down. He gets the penalty. That's what a striker's supposed to do. I think he did his job, and then the penalty buries it. So that goal for me came against the run of play over the first part of the second half up until that point, and maybe the last 15 minutes of the first half. The Red Bulls were the better team, and it was a long stretch of time they were the better team, and that was concerning. The substitutions that Frank de Boer made when he brought on Brandon Vasquez and he brought on Jeff Lorenowitz changed the attitude of the team for me. This was a game about fight, because that's what it had turned into. It had turned into a street fight. Atlanta won the duels, and this was something Frank de Boer mentioned after the match. Atlanta won the duels in the first half, and they won it overall. They actually won it by a greater margin in the second half. But there was a stretch where it felt like the Red Bulls were in complete control and bossing the game a little bit. And I think I might have called it bully ball at one point. And that's what it felt like. It felt like they were coming in and setting the tone. Those substitutions changed that attitude a bit, and it was needed because you weren't going to change it after 30 minutes or so, 15 on either side of the halftime, of playing the same way, because the game had changed. The first 30, I thought Atlanta was really good, and I thought Atlanta was in good control of the match, and at times they were dealing with the press really well. Passing was good. They were taking the possession. They were taking the air out of the ball a little bit in the right moments to frustrate the Red Bulls. But once the Red Bulls grabbed control of the match, Atlanta had to match that intensity, and it took them a while to do it. They eventually did. They flipped it around, but the middle portion of the match was all New York.
And the substitution of Brandon Vasquez, there are certain things that P.T. Martinez does, and he does them incredibly well. I have never heard a mention about him going up and being active in duels as a part of his skill set. So I understood the substitution where if you're trying to get a little bit more, you're trying to get active in duels, you're trying to win duels, you're trying to gain possession away, and I'm not going to say match the bully ball, but at least but have a physical presence in there and get some activity in the air. I completely understood the substitution of P.T. Martinez at the time that he was removed. Completely understood that.
He was a luxury player at that stage, and that's where the game was. I thought what Frank de Boer said after the match was 100% correct. You needed something different. You needed you needed to win more duels, but you also needed to just change the face of the team at that point, because Pitti wasn't in a position to help that result get overturned. He wasn't playing exceedingly well. He wasn't playing horribly bad either. He did have an assist in the first half, and it was not just a nothing pass either. He didn't do enough. And that's the thing about attacking players like that. And, I mean, you can go through any player of that type of ideal. You can go through, on the U.S. women's side, a Megan Rapinoe. There's actually a lot of similarities there. You can go through a Ronaldinho. You can go through whoever in the history of the game. And those players are great when you're in control of matches. Those players are great in certain kinds of matches. They're capable of moments of magic. But when they're not delivering that, and in a game like this that is a street fight, you can't have that player in that moment. It's not working. You have to make a change. And I thought it was a brave move from Frank de Boer to make the change the way he did when he did. I mean, on paper, you look at that, and it's Brandon Vasquez coming in for Pity Martinez, and you're like, what? But it worked, and it changed the attitude of the team. Does that mean Brandon Vasquez is a better player and worth $15 million on the open market right now? No. It means in the game yesterday, Brandon Vasquez was the better option. That happens. Pity Martinez has to be better. He has to be better in the final third in the attacking phase to make up for not being a player that's going to win those duels and do those things. River Plate built a team around him to get the most out of him, and they did. Atlanta United is asking him to do more, and he did in the first half. If you want to go back and start looking at the way the game played out and people tracking back and people defending, I mean, I believe even Doug Robertson tweeted about it a few times. Like, it happened. I thought in the first half he was more engaged in those moments. I thought he got frustrated, and he kind of, wasn't as involved in those moments. It's not who he is as a player. It's not. He's going to have to find a middle ground. And I think if Frank DeBoer wants to get the best out of the team, he's going to have to help him find that middle ground of, yes, we want you to be influential in the moments that you thrive in. And you have to be influential in those moments. Because if we're going to sacrifice the way we want to be a little bit to get the best out of you, you have to deliver. And when you're not delivering to stay on the field, you have to deliver some of the things that we're asking for in other facets. That's normal. That's professional sports. It happens. Pity is going to have to battle for playing time when Ezequiel Barco's healthy, when Tito Villalba's healthy, when Emerson Hyndman comes into the team, as are a lot of players. I think right now Justin Merrim is playing at a level that you want him in the team. As much as he is able to play, you want him in there. Darlington Nagbe, if he plays like he did in that last 20 minutes, you want him in the team and you don't want him to move. You don't want him to go anywhere. That's today. That could change after next weekend. That could change after Wednesday against St. Louis. That's the ups and downs of a season. But the substitution, I think, was 100% correct, and it was a game where Pity Martinez was not as influential as he needed to be in the second half, and you had to make the change. First half, I think we can go through fairly quickly. First 30 minutes felt like it was a really good start from Atlanta. Justin Merrim with an outstanding goal. The first touch, it's a great ball from Pity Martinez because of the weight on the pass. It gives Justin Merrim options. It's not a pass that he has to go in and try to run and outrun Kyle Duncan. It gives him an option to do a few different things. And the first touch, the option that Merrim chose, was outstanding. Leaves Duncan for dead, goes in, beats Robles. You get the opening goal, and Justin Merrim is just flying right now. He's playing so well. You lost it a little bit as the half went on. It felt like where you started to lose it a little bit was the very hard challenge from Amro Tarek on Joseph Martinez. Franco Escobar inexplicably gets a yellow card in all of the afters of that. Eric Remedi picks up a yellow not too long after, and it felt like Atlanta lost their head a little bit. Partially because of the challenge, partially because of the referee's reaction. I thought Kevin Stott struggled to deal with this game. I think most referees would, to be honest. The way New York Red Bulls play, they push buttons. They push buttons of the opposition, and they push buttons of the referee. I think Chris Armas made a very smart tactical change early in the second half that added to that frustration for Atlanta. Every time Atlanta got free in the middle third, there was a foul. Every single time there was a foul. 19 fouls overall for both teams. 19 fouls for New York. And so many in that middle third. And they were very tactical. No yellow cards for persistent infringement. That was my biggest frustration because I thought it was very obvious how the match was being played late in the first half, but especially in the first 15, 20, 30 minutes of the second half, where Atlanta couldn't play when they did break New York's pressure because there was going to be a foul and there were no real repercussions. So that takes you to things towards the end. Jeff Lorenowitz came in, and yeah, he was a big part of changing the attitude for the team on the field. Jeff was fortunate to still be on the field after the push / choke slam / flop, because it's somewhere in between of Mark Shatkovsky. He went down really easily, but Jeff put himself in a position that wasn't smart either. And then the situation at the end, it's bizarre the way it was handled at the end. And that's the thing I want to make clear before we take a break here and reset for the next segment. The referees had left the field. There was no sign of VAR, a check, or anything going on. They were off the end line going towards their locker room. Now, I looked away. We went to break after our end of the match wrap. And then I see them coming back to the field. My first thought was that somebody threw something at him again because they did at the final whistle, and that was stupid. Stop doing that nonsense, people. I thought that had happened. Then I see them keep walking towards the Atlanta technical area, and the last thing that happened was the situation with Christian Caceres and Jeff Larentowicz, where I saw Caceres take a flop before this happened, and he's on the ground. Then he gets up, and when you watch the replay, he gets up and he shoves and kind of pokes at Larentowicz 3 different times before Jeff turns around, steps towards him, steps on his foot, and shoves him. And they both go tumbling as Caceres falls down and Larentowicz is pushing forward, and he falls over him. The way it was handled as a red card was bizarre because the refs had left the field. There was no sign it was being checked for a red. That part's 100% true. That's not what you normally... The optics are awful for the situation because normally they don't leave the field until any check is over. That part behind the scenes will be dealt with by pro, and however it's dealt with, it's dealt with. But the optics of that were awful in the building. Was it a red card? I don't know if he stepped on his foot intentionally. I didn't think he did. I thought he was stepping at him, and it was another fall down easily, and that's how it ends up looking. But that was number 2 for Larentowicz with a shove. You're really pushing the envelope there. It hurts you because now you're not going to have him for Sunday. I'm kind of with Frank on it from what he said afterwards. It's just not smart to put yourself in that spot. Was Caceres getting under the skin of players? 100%. I mean, it was frustrating to watch how he was able to do some of the things he did consistently with no repercussions from the referees. Lots of late stuff, lots of jawing, lots of this cheap stuff, lots of flopping, and then lots of instigating. Well, it worked. The second guy usually gets the red card. The second guy usually gets the foul called on them, and that's what happened here. I don't like the way it was given, but it's kind of hard to argue when you see it. Was it necessary? No, I don't think so. Not the way that game was called overall, but letter of the law, is it a red? I mean, it can be. It can be. It's up to the referee's discretion. I don't think he reached in terms of that's not a red card situation. I don't like the way he gave it, and I don't like the way it went down. That's my biggest issue with it. And I didn't think a red card in that match, for that moment, felt like it fit the context of the match. Not every match is the same, and the way that game was called, that moment to get the red didn't feel like it fit. Felt like that was something that would be a red from a different match, if that makes sense.
And, to your point about how the match was being called, I think that, how did you characterize the Amro Tarek, Joseph Martinez at 45 plus 3?
Like a car crash. I mean, he comes in with a knee high, didn't make contact with the knee. There's no studs up, so you don't have anything of that reaction, but he comes in at very high speed with zero intent to play the ball because he's not in a soccer motion with his knee up high. And he gets him, I think, with his hip more than anything. Completely out of line. Completely out of line. And this is where teams get frustrated because your star player gets hit like that. And the reaction from the whole situation is a yellow card to the player who hit your star and a yellow card to one of your players for, I don't know, it said dissent. If you're going to pick dissent out of all of that extracurricular, that's where you start to get frustrated because it's not an even situation. The hit and whatever dissent happened afterwards are not even, but they were with yellows going each way. That'll drive you crazy. You can't let it. You can't let it take you out of the game, but it'll drive you crazy. And that's what I kind of think had a hand in the way Atlanta lost control of the match there for a while. They did. New York outplayed them. New York was a better team over the full 90, I think. Not by a huge margin, but they were better for longer. Atlanta started well, and they bounced back, and they finished well up until the final goal. There are good things out of this match. There are troubling things out of this match. There are bad things out of this match. It had a little bit of everything. It was an unbelievable match if you were a neutral who just turned it on and knew nothing about it. It's a frustrating match if you're an Atlanta fan because of the way it finished. I think the way it finished makes a New York fan feel pretty good. I think both teams, if you came in and you said it was going to be a draw, you didn't get into the details of how you get to the draw, but just it was going to be a draw. These are two really good teams. A draw is about right here. So, boy, all the things. And I know you guys are going to have comments and questions and all kinds of things about it. We will get to it in hour number 2, but we've got 2 other matches we have to talk about first. The U.S. women won their second straight World Cup title, and we're going to talk about that in the next segment. The U.S. men came up short 1-0 to Mexico in the Gold Cup final. We're going to talk about that as well in the rest of hour number 1. But we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Apolinski & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, July 8th edition, trying to recap a wild Sunday of soccer around the planet. The first match of the day was in Lyon, France, and the U.S. women took care of business against the Netherlands, 2-0 in the World Cup final. They were the favorite coming in. The Dutch played well, I think, in the final. This was their first World Cup final. They only ended up with 5 shots, 1 on target. First half, scoreless. And I thought the Dutch were in it, but the U.S. started to take control. In the second half, they get a penalty after VAR. Megan Rapinoe puts it away. Rose Lavelle with a great goal in the 69th to cap a great tournament and the U.S. sees it out. 54% of the possession. They had 10 shots on target. They were the better team. They were the bigger team, and they were the champions of the Women's World Cup. I think once we got to this stage, the U.S. was expected to do what they did, and they just flat out took care of business in the final.
And there are two players that I wanted to get your umbrella opinion on, I guess, for both this match and for the tournament in general. And the first one that I wanted to ask you about was Crystal Dunn.
Crystal Dunn playing a position that's not her best did everything you could ask of her. She shut down some of the best wingers in the world. She was relentless with her work. When she was beaten 1v1, usually she ended up not really being beaten because she recovered and won it back. She did get forward sometimes. I really wish she'd got that goal in the final. That would have been a great cap on the tournament for her. But Crystal Dunn showed that she is one of the best players in the United States, period, no matter what position you put her in.
And the other was the one who tapped Megan Rapinoe on the shoulder and looked like she wanted to ask if she could have a picture taken with her when everything was being handed out at the end. Rose Lavelle.
Rose Lavelle was one that, coming into the tournament, I thought the midfield needed to be Horan, Mewis, and Ertz. And not because I don't think Rose Lavelle is a great player. I thought you needed more balance. And Lindsey Horan had injuries, and that took her out of the lineup. And it gave Lavelle an opportunity to show her whole game. And Lavelle was consistently dangerous in this tournament. And she kind of, we talked about Justin Merrim, like now you can't really take him out of the lineup because he's played so well. That was what Rose Lavelle was in this World Cup. Coming in, I think Sam Mewis is a player who you need in this team for that balance, and that made it a decision between Horan and Lavelle. For me, you would normally pick Lindsey Horan, especially after the season she had in 2018, where she was, the best player in NWSL. Just unbelievable year. She showed flashes of that in this tournament, but she wasn't 100%. Lavelle 100% took advantage of this thing. And she gets the goal to end the match and end the tournament, and she deserved it. Bronze ball for the third best player in the tournament as a whole. Absolutely. She was that good, and you couldn't not have her on the field when you needed it.
And when you look at the back, and I guess since I've already mentioned Crystal Dunn, and you look at the rest of the back as a whole, when you think of O'Hara, Dahlkemper, and Sauerbrunn, what comes to mind?
I think Abby Dahlkemper is one who gets lost in the shuffle a bit. Her long passing was just critical for this team. She's able to open up the field so many times. And the U.S. wants to build out of the back, and they want to play out of the back, but you can't always do that. Dahlkemper was one who could change it and give it a different element. Sauerbrunn was up and down. She, again, had some injuries she was dealing with in the tournament. I thought she was a warrior taking a shot to the face and having to get the black tape out to continue, and she does. Kelly O'Hara did have to leave in the final because of a head-to-head collision, and I think she's okay. She couldn't continue in this one, but you have the depth to be able to deal with that, and that's what's impressive about this group. I don't know how important it is that I think it was Ali Krieger who said that you could put two teams from the U.S. in this tournament and they'd be two of the best teams. You can only put in one, so it really doesn't matter. But the depth overall was big, and for me, what stood out about this U.S. team was their mental strength to be able to deal with those situations. You bring on Ali Krieger, who had been just away from the national team for a long time. It was a surprise when she was brought back into the group. You brought her back in for that game. I had a lot of questions about Jill Ellis, and I had a lot of criticisms of some of the things she did. She got it 100% right. there's really nothing she missed on because they won the tournament. They didn't lose. She did her job, and she pushed all the right buttons. Allie Krieger coming back into this team in the final at 0-0 to come in. Flawless. Nothing at all to worry about with Allie Krieger on the field in that moment. She got everything right. She managed the midfield situation correct with Horan, with Lavelle, with Mewis, with Ertz. She got her picks right. Having all the firepower and all the different rotations. Jill Ellis nailed it, and Jill Ellis is now the second manager in the history of the World Cup, men and women, to win it back-to-back. It's very, very difficult to do what they did. For me, Ellis's leadership, but also the mental strength of this team. And when Ellis talked about how this team would deal with pressure and how it's not anything that they worry about, it was nothing that they were afraid of. Accurate. Completely accurate. We could go through the roster and just go through every player and the different things that they showed in this. Alex Morgan, I think, being a complete forward, taking a beating consistently in games, but contributing in so many facets of the way the team plays. She had the ton of goals against Thailand. Really not much else from a score sheet perspective, but she was so vital to the way this team played. Megan Rapinoe, as the Golden Ball of the tournament, Golden Boot winner as well. I think the Golden Ball should have been Julie Ertz. I think Julie Ertz was more important to the way the team played, and she was there more often in the tournament. Rapinoe not playing in the semifinal, for me, that makes it hard to give her the Golden Ball as the best player in the tournament. You could have picked a couple other players, too, to be in that conversation. That's how good this team was. Rose Lavelle could have been in the conversation for Golden Ball, absolutely. It was such a strong performance overall. Rapinoe to deal with all of the noise around her and constantly deliver. And just like we talked about in the first segment, how we've talked about Pity Martinez and what he brings to the table, Megan Rapinoe is not a player who's being asked to run 10 miles in a match and get stuck in defensively. At her age, which is a different element than Pity, but just what she gives to the team. You don't want her defending in the final third. You want her to get the ball in midfield. You want her to get the ball in the final third, and you want her to be deadly in those moments. She was. Her service from the wing, consistently creating things. And when you needed her in the big moments, she delivered. That's just a massive performance. And it is an in-your-face performance because after the first game, after things that were said off the field, look, there were a lot of eyeballs and there were a lot of people that were sitting back and hoping that she would fail. And there were a lot of people that were looking at her around the world and hoping that she would fail and the U.S. would fail. They took that pressure on, they took it head on, and they delivered. And that is something to be commended. For me, Ertz was the best player in the tournament. I don't think you win this tournament without Julie Ertz. I feel like Lucy Bronze won the silver ball from England. For me, that should have been Ellen White. I think White was the more complete performer for England in the tournament. Bronze didn't hit the level that she did 4 years ago. But as a whole, and we've said it so many times, and we'll have a World Cup date tomorrow to kind of recap everything and look at what's next in the world of women's soccer. The conversation about the U.S. steamrolling through the tournament and dominating the tournament, completely disagree. I've seen that in the mainstream media a lot. I think people who just turned up for the final and just paid attention at the end of the tournament. Spain played the U.S. incredibly even, and it was 2 penalties that you get through on. France should have been better, and they weren't. They were the biggest disappointment in the tournament for me. I thought they would win it. I thought they would beat the U.S. I thought they would win the tournament coming in the way they were playing this year, this calendar year. They were the favorite coming into the tournament. They could not deal with that pressure. The U.S. could. England, that match is a total toss-up because it's 2-1 final. England just blows a penalty opportunity. It's a poorly taken penalty from Steph Houghton, and we're a foot offside on another. I think Phil Neville made some decisions tactically that hurt that team. Nikita Parrish should have played out wide. Kira Walsh pulling her out when he did, I think that messed up the midfield because they were starting to carve the U.S. up a little bit. Walsh was a big part of that, and it just never really clicked after that. That's going to be a game that I think England will really struggle to get over for a while because they were right there. It's a toss-up game to me. So Spain game, pretty much a toss-up. France, the U.S. wins and deals with the pressure better. England, toss-up. Netherlands, U.S. was the better team, but it took till the 61st minute and a penalty. That was a correct call. It's a correct call. Once you go look at that, there's no way you're not calling it a penalty. There's just no way once you see it. You have to call the penalty. I mean, maybe on the field you could have tried to go with just a high boot and an indirect kick for a dangerous play, but once you see that it studs up and they're connecting and it's in the area, it's a penalty. There's just really not any other way to argue it. And then you get the goal to cap it off. The U.S. was the best team in the tournament. They did not dominate or steamroll the tournament. And that should be discussed, not just to say that the women's game's grown and there were more teams that had a chance to win it, because all that was there before the tournament. I hope the U.S. looks at this as there are still things that we have to get better than, and we have to work on, and we have to improve overall, because other teams are right here with us. And it was our mental strength that put us through this time, the physical power, the ability to play faster than a lot of teams. Those are elements that the U.S. has, but there are things that they can work on and get better than. And if they don't, they're going to get passed up by some of these other talents that are going to be even better in 4 years. It was a blast to watch this tournament. I had high expectations, and it surpassed it completely. I had high expectations for the U.S., but I did not think they would win it. They proved anybody who doubted them wrong because they're just that tough mentally.
One other player that we haven't gotten into, and a lot was said about this player just as much at points as Jill Ellis, but Alyssa Nair in net. And I thought that she became more comfortable, be more assured, seem more confident as the keeper as the tournament went along.
Yeah, she never really had a ton to do is part of it. She had one save in the final. Against England, she had 3 saves, and that was maybe her biggest performance. Against France, she had 4 saves. I don't really remember a ton of big ones. The England save she made was her best of the tournament, high and to her left. Spain, she had no saves. I think it was between France and England where not just she grew in confidence, but the team grew in confidence in her. And she delivered in the moments that she needed to. She didn't get called upon to make some of the saves that goalkeepers have had to make in the past. And that speaks to the overall strength of this team and the strength of the back line especially, because they just weren't beaten that much. Ertz started it in front of the back line, and the back line themselves just did not give up many opportunities in this tournament.
And I think it's safe to say that, and this is probably one of the larger undersells of the morning, that if anybody questioned Jill Ellis, she can pretty much write her own ticket to do whatever she wants from this moment forward when it comes to whatever she wants to do on a touchline on this or any other planet.
She knew her team inside and out. I mean, I still, like, there's things that she did that I didn't like. I thought she went to 5 in the back too quickly at times.
Agreed.
There were questions I had about different elements, for sure. But she delivered. she got the job done. And, yeah, she can do whatever she wants now. And that's the job. I mean, her players, I think her knowledge of her players is what was the most important thing here. I don't feel like she's a master tactician, but I feel like she knows what works for her group. And at the end of the day, that's the manager's job. Because if you come in with your tactical book and you're only going to play one way, or you have this idea, when things go wrong or when things change or when things fall apart, you're stuck. And I think she was always able to figure out what worked for her group. And that's a credit to the job that she did. I thought she should have brought the next generation through quicker after the Olympics. She found the right balance. Now, where do you go from here? And that's going to be the interesting question. Does she continue on? I mean, the Olympics, I would probably say she does, and I would feel like that would complete this cycle in a lot of ways. Does she want to go through another 4 years? Does she want to do another World Cup cycle? Does she want to start to remake this team with the young talent coming through? It's an interesting challenge, and that'll be I'll be fascinated to see where she wants to go with that after all of this. The next 4 years in the women's game are maybe the most important 4 years that women's soccer's ever had. On the professional club side, there's so much room to grow. That will then change the way the national teams are and change the overall level. The sponsorship elements, you see the Budweiser sponsorship that the NWSL announces on the day of the final. So many things between now and the 2023 World Cup that need to happen for the women's game, that will happen, and it's how they manage that growth. And for the U.S. and for the national team program, will Jill Ellis want to stay on and be part of that? If she wanted to walk away and go chill, you couldn't really blame her for that at this point after winning back-to-back World Cups. Does she want to be the first to win 3? She might. And with her job that she did here, I thought she was so much better than she was in 2011 or 2015 as a manager. I thought 2015, it felt like things kind of fell into place with the lineup. In this one, she pulled all the right strings with the lineup and delivered another trophy. So whatever she wants to do, she's going to get to call her own shot over the next 4 years. And it's just down to what she wants to do. Does she want to take a club on? Does she want to go take a big club in Europe? I mean, if you're a big club and have huge ambition, she would be somebody that you should be calling. So does that happen? Does the U.S. keep her on? Does she want to? I can't wait to see these types of things as we move to the next stage. Let's take a break, come back, and talk U.S. men's national team Gold Cup final. Mexico wins 1-0. Really good match, really entertaining match, and a few things we need to get into before we get to the Overreaction Monday timeline. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Final segment, hour number 1, July 8th, Overreaction Monday. We'll get to all of your overreactions or underreactions or on par reactions in hour number 2, but we've got to talk U.S. men's national team Gold Cup final first. Mexico wins 1-0. It's a goal from Jonathan Dos Santos. I said coming into the tournament that I thought Greg Berhalter had to reach the final. If he didn't, it would be a failure. He did. I don't think you can consider this tournament a failure by any stretch. Were there decisions in the final? Were there decisions along the way that people disagree about? Obviously, if you follow Twitter and any conversation, and that's fine. But Greg Berhalter did what he needed to do. This feels very different than the end of qualifying for the 2018 World Cup. It feels very different than 2018 with a series of friendlies that meant nothing and really no direction with Dave Sarek and, keeping things going, but not really given any direction and where to take it. It felt very different than the first couple matches under Greg Berhalter, and the most important thing for me is it felt really different than the 2 matches coming into the tournament where it was disastrous for the U.S. coming in. Berhalter was able to get this team to the final. It's a good first step. It's a really good first step, and that should not be lost in any discussion of just the final. They had to get there. They did. They were competitive. Greg Berhalter has taken this team to a place that he had to get to, and I feel like it's good progress. Beyond that, are there still things to work on? Yeah, absolutely. Are there still things that have to get better? For sure. But he did what he had to do, and he competed with Mexico in a game that first half could have gone either way.
I think that when you look at the men's national team, especially in the final, I think that it was the philosophy was dialed back. It wasn't as ornate, I guess is the word that I'm looking for, or where you're having folks diving in, doing certain things. I think it was more basic. I think that it was something it's like, okay, let's slow things down here and let's just do what we can out here instead of trying to overthink the situation and have people bending in and working your formations. I loved what I saw with Reggie Cannon. Obviously, we can talk about Christian Pulisic all day long. I liked Weston McKennie standing up for his teammates. I liked what I saw from Josie Altidore. And I know that Twitter blew up over the substitution pattern, but I'm looking at it specifically from the approach in the match that seemed to be more simple, more basic, getting from point A to point B. And there were bright spots that I saw in the 11. And the question is now, where do you go from here with what you've learned? Obviously, no Tyler Adams is a big part of this and about the philosophy that Berhalter wanted to instill. But for me, it's a step forward, and that's what you're looking for now. What's that second step forward as you're trying to get back to where you've been as a power?
It's not going to be an easy path because this was not Mexico's strongest team, and they are not going to sit back and watch the U.S. develop and not develop, not under Tata Martino. Other countries in CONCACAF are not just going to sit back either, so there's still a lot of work to do. The thing about it, and I talked about it a lot coming into the tournament, the system with the capital T and the capital S, and as Matt Doyle put on a trademark. For me, that, in a negative context, was the whole thing with the right back tucking inside and being an extra central midfielder and trying to do those things that are not easy to do and creating a bunch of rotations that have to be well drilled, and if they're not, it falls apart. You didn't see that much here, and that's good because you didn't have the players to do it, first off. to me, that whole element felt like a way to get Tyler Adams on the field and get him on the field along with having Michael Bradley, which you wanted for your possession, or will trap. Michael Bradley outplayed him. And getting Weston McKennie and Christian Pulisic on the field. That, to me, is the biggest dilemma for Greg Berhalter going forward, is how are you going to get your best players on the field in spots that suit them? Or are any of them going to be able to be in different spots to still deliver what you want to deliver? And ultimately, the system with lowercase t and the lowercase s, and just talking about the philosophy of the way that I think Greg Berhalter wants this team to play, he wants possession. He wants the ball. He wants to have his talented players in positions to do something with it. That's good. That's easy. That's simple. It was where it was getting where it felt like maybe overthinking it to try to do some things that it's not even being next level. It's just doing things that are complicated for the sake of being complicated. And that's not what this tournament felt like because you didn't have Tyler Adams. All of it felt like a way to get Tyler Adams on the field and keep everybody else in positions. You're going to have to figure out long-term, one, can you be a possession-dominant team with Tyler Adams playing the 6? Can he be that guy? Can he give you everything you want out of that role, which is what Michael Bradley gives you, plus more defensive ability, more range, all those types of things? That's not easy to do. Can Adams be that player? We'll have to see. Could somebody else be that player? We'll have to see. But you're going to need Tyler Adams in this team somewhere. And if it's as a right back, it's as a right back. I don't think it needs to be as a right back tucking inside to be an extra central midfielder sometimes, and then your left back tucking. That's too much. If Adams has to play right back to be on the team, he has to play right back to be on the team. I think he needs to be in the middle as an 8, as a box-to-box 8. And if you do that, then how do you make the rest of it work? These are the difficult things for Berhalter going forward. And maybe against some teams it looks one way, against other teams it looks another way. That's fine. This is not a club team. This is the national team. You have great players all the time who don't fit into their national team because there's somebody at the same position that's better. You're going to have these questions. You have them now. You're going to have them get even louder as the pool gets better, as the level gets better, and as Berhalter moves along and gets into more competitive matches. You're going to have those things come up. That's a good thing. The progress Berhalter has made from January 1 to now is good. Next competitive matches are the CONCACAF Nations League. You get 2 matches with Canada home and away. You get 2 matches with Cuba home and away. 4 wins. I mean, those are 4 matches you should win. And you should look good in doing so. That's the next challenge. Tyler Adams needs to be part of that group if he's healthy. Weston McKennie needs to give you a little bit more. I thought he had a good tournament. Had a big mistake in the final. And that was something that had happened in multiple times. That needs to change. You need to figure out, okay, is it time for Josh Sargent? Is he going to push his way in at the club level to where he's going to push his way into the national team? Is it time for Paxton Pomykal? Is it time for other members of that U20 team? It's going to be an interesting fall because I think you will see some of them mix in, and I think you will see other changes. But Berhalter made the necessary steps to get the team where it needed to be at the end of the summer, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. Now he has to make more steps to keep advancing the team, and we will see where those go. We'll talk about all of this and anything else you guys want to get into in hour number 2. It's Overreaction Monday. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Give us your Overreaction Monday takes, whether they're truly overreactions, whether they're underreactions, on par reactions, wherever you want to take it, we're here to listen and have the conversation. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Atlutd Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, SDH Overreaction Monday, July 8th. We had a win that we've talked about in hour number 1. We had a loss that we've talked about in hour number 1. And we had a draw that we talked about in hour number 1.
About fair.
All the things from a crazy weekend and all the reactions on the Twitters. What are the peeps saying, John?
Let's start all the way back to immediately after the match yesterday. And Heath Bradley says, Doug, you know what we needed today in Atlanta? MB90. I'll let the hate flow through you now. Hashtag on par reaction Monday.
No. I mean, I get where, Heath is going with that, but no, that wasn't what you needed. Bradley in the Gold Cup, the takes just, it astounds me sometimes the how people react to the men's national team at this point, where it is some people during the tournament saying, well, that's why you need Michael Bradley in this team. You see what he's bringing to the table. It's all good. And then you see people blaming him for things that aren't his fault and saying that this team is stupid with Michael Bradley in it and they'll never win anything and he should never play soccer again. It's like on one end of the spectrum and on the other end of the spectrum, and there's no actual real conversation about it. For the way Greg Berhalter wanted to play, Bradley was the guy that needed to play in this team in the Gold Cup. Is he going to be that player in the CONCACAF Nations League matches this fall? It's not guaranteed. If he's not, whoever is playing has to give you a lot of what Michael Bradley gives you in terms of being that metronome for possession. If you're going to be a possession team, and by all accounts that's what Greg Berhalter wants to do, whoever's in that role has to give you that. That's not something Tyler Adams has done in his career. Can he be that? Maybe, but we don't know. The New York Red Bulls never asked him to be that player. He hasn't been that player in Europe yet. He wasn't that player in any youth national teams. So it's not saying he can't be. It's just we've never seen it. Because you're going to need that player in this team the way that we have seen so far and everything that has been said. You're going to need that player to be somebody who is getting 100 touches, who's making 70, 80, 90 passes a match, and is controlling the ball for your team. Michael Bradley is the best player to do that job with the national team today. Will Trapp is a similar player, but he hasn't been better than Michael Bradley. Is there another one? Don't know yet. Just don't know yet. And Tyler Adams is a very different kind of player who plays in the same position. So if he is going to be there and he's going to be the player playing that role, either Adams has to give you more than we've seen from him so far in this area of the game, or you're going to have to find another way to control that possession and where you control it. And that's not necessarily easy to do. So that's the conversation about Michael Bradley. And you can yell and scream about a million other things right now, but the possession side of what Bradley gives you is why he is playing. And if you're going to be a possession team, you have to have somebody who can do those things. Right now, I don't know who that is, obviously. Because if it's Adams who plays as the 6, we just haven't seen him play that type of a 6. Doesn't mean he can't. We've never seen it.
Being the dutiful promoter for programming later today, Soccer Metrics will be joining us on Soccer Over There tonight.
Yes, we will talk Copa America and Soccer Over There, and Howard Hamilton, Soccer Metrics, is one of the most knowledgeable people in the South American game I know. And we'll get into Brazil winning the title. We'll get into all of the stuff around Argentina and all of the things that have been said by Lionel Messi after they were eliminated in the semifinal. We'll talk about Colombia going out when they did, Peru making the final. Howard's going to give us his best 11 from the tournament and just get a good wrap on how everything finished up in Brazil. With everything going on this summer, and there was a lot of talk about it with the final yesterday on the Women's World Cup. I do agree with many of the U.S. players, but I know Rapinoe stated this over the weekend. There should not have been a Copa America final and a Gold Cup final on the same day as the Women's World Cup final. That should not have happened. Was it cool for a fan that it did? To a degree. I mean, I didn't watch the Copa America final, one, because we had the match in MLS with Atlanta United and Red Bulls, but also there's other things going on. I watched Copa America the least of all of the tournaments. I watched the Women's World Cup the most. Gold Cup was next for me. For me, it took me away from watching Copa America. I would have watched more of it if it had been a different spot in the calendar. But the finals themselves, no, that should never happen, because if anybody came up and said, well, yeah, just have other finals on the same day as the Men's World Cup final, no, people would lose their minds. So, no, it shouldn't happen with the Women's World Cup final. There's no justification for it. It's one of those things, like even if it doesn't matter to you, like, you can't justify that it's okay. The optics are awful. And for CONCACAF to just basically be like, yeah, we made a mistake. Like, come on. For CONCACAF, it would have been better for them to have the Gold Cup final tonight. Have it on the Monday night after everything. It would have been much better. It's just, I don't know. It's, for me, the Copa America just was not as compelling this time around. And then there was all the differences with VAR in it and the way it was handled, and it was slow, and it was the first time we'd seen it at the Copa America, and I think you had a lot of people who just didn't use it effectively. The referees didn't use it effectively, and it felt like there was just controversy after controversy, and it was distracting from what was a good tournament. There were good performances in it. So we will get to the nitty-gritty of the tournament itself with Howard and get into players who stood out and teams who stood out and what those storylines on the field were coming out of Brazil this summer.
Yeah, I want to ask him about Japan and Qatar and their involvement, but I'm going to hold that off until he's actually on the show. Back to the match itself yesterday, the one that took over Mercedes-Benz Live. Ricky Ricardo had a 3-2 lead with a little time left. DC lost Thursday. Montreal lost Saturday. Philly dropped points Sunday. NYC lost Sunday. We've got to stop wasting these opportunities. The rest of the league can't bail us out forever. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Yeah, I mean, you dropped a point in Toronto where initially it was taken away from you by a bad penalty call, and then you had a chance to get it back, and you missed a penalty yourself. That's 1 point that should have been in your back pocket. These are two more. Should have been in your back pocket. Those add up. Those add up over the course of a season, and you can't put it in the same category as other games. The Real Salt Lake game would be the other one that you had a point in your pocket and you lost it. So 4. A loss is a loss. Chicago, you didn't have any points in your pocket at any point in that one. These, you had 4 points in your pocket late and you gave them up. And that could be the difference between hosting a playoff game and going on the road. And with everything being one game now, that's a big difference. So it just decreases that margin for error. Now, look, there are other teams in the league that are coming back to the pack a bit. NYC losing at home to Portland. That's a big help for you. Because NYC was the team that was maybe worrying me the most about running away in the East. I don't think anybody's going to run away in the East. But that means every point is critical. And you dropped points in Toronto and Real Salt Lake where you had a draw that turned into a loss. This one you dropped 2 because you had a win that turned into a draw. Can't have that happen on a regular basis.
Chris Ashley, the head of YTSS, that soccer show up in Greenville and GVLsoccer.com, contributor to Greenville Triumph Weekly here on the network, got to run into him yesterday. He made the trek down, as
Very
did
nice.
A couple of Greenville folks to catch Red Bulls and Atlanta United, plus all of the World Cup stuff previous. I'm curious to hear if there's any explanation for why no card was given upon awarding of the Joseph penalty. Based on the replay in the stadium, looked pulled down from behind, potential red, but I would think at least yellow with PK given.
It should have been a yellow. No red on that because it's not dog so, because there's another defender right there. So yellow, you often see a yellow in that situation. I thought Kyle Duncan should have had a yellow way before. I believe he got one very late. He should have had a yellow before that happened, in my opinion, and that would have changed everything in that situation if he got a second yellow. But I wouldn't go much more than that. It wasn't a huge miss for me. The penalty was the most important part of that call, and that was handled correctly. If he had given a yellow, I don't think anyone would have really batted an eye. If he'd given a red, yes, people would have been very worked up about that. And that's why I don't think there was a red card in it. There's nothing to be a red card. Yellow, there's a lot to be a yellow.
Then Ricky also asks, if fit, how important is this week for Emerson Hyndman?
I mean, it's his first week where he can play, so I don't know how much importance I'd be putting on it. Maybe there's a little bit of jumping to conclusions just about players in general about, they have to do this straight away. Look, Hyndman, I mean, is brand new to the team. I don't know how many training sessions he's had or if he's had any yet. I'd love to see him hit the ground running because it would really be helpful for the group to have another player in the middle of the park who's comfortable on the ball and can give you really important minutes. It'd be a huge benefit to the team. But how important is it for him? Not very, honestly, in the grand scheme of things. It's not like if he has a bad week or a slow week to get going that he's going to be gone. So for the team, it'd be great if he can give you minutes. I mean, if he could play against St. Louis, that'd be huge. Because the St. Louis game is really tricky. I mean, the way this gets managed over the next week is very, very interesting because the St. Louis match is one you should win. You're playing a lower division opponent. You're at home. It's a quarterfinal. You should win that and get to a semi. And then, I mean, you're 3 games away right now from lifting a trophy and going to CONCACAF Champions League next year. That's a big deal. There's a financial component for the players as well. It's a big deal. You're 3 games away, and you have a very winnable game to start that 3-game stretch. So you're going to take it seriously, but where it falls in the schedule, you do have the option to rotate a little bit. Hyndman coming in, that'd be a great spot for a debut for him. If you can give it to him, if he's ready to do that. Otherwise, I'm really intrigued to see what the lineup looks like between Wednesday against St. Louis, Sunday in Seattle, and then the following Wednesday against Houston. I honestly think the Seattle game might be the lowest priority of the next 4 because St. Louis is a cup game in a quarterfinal, and you have home games against Houston and NDC right after the Seattle game. The most likely options for 3 points, in my mind, are Houston and DC. Seattle would be the lowest likelihood of 3 points out of those 3 games in league play. And St. Louis is must win. You just have to get through. So how the lineup looks between that run is going to be very intriguing. If you can get Hyndman in and get minutes for him and he can contribute, that helps you a lot over this next run of games.
And along those lines, Elliot Beaven wanted to ask if we thought we were going to see Hyndman on the bench on Wednesday.
I don't know. I mean, I'd love it if you can.
Yeah.
Let me get to something real quick because this wasn't on the timeline. Bartimus Prime is not happy with me already. It took about an hour 17 for the day. Dude, you can't have watched that tournament and actually believe MB is our best option. Too many times he was easily outrun, caught while dribbling, and passed around. He needs to be phased out. Bart, let me make it clear why I said Michael Bradley was the best option in this tournament. I wasn't talking about being outrun or caught while dribbling or passed around. In a possession team, Greg Berhalter has made it clear, because it's how he played in Columbus, you need a 6 to be that player in possession. That's why Michael Bradley played. He was better than Will Trapp in that role. And you don't have anybody else who has shown that that's the role they play. If you're going to play differently, or you're going to ask somebody else to be that player in possession, cool. That's a different conversation altogether. I think, personally, if you're going to play Bradley because you want him in that role, you need to play him with an 8 like Tyler Adams. Because then some of the elements that you're talking about, Bart, and others have said too, like Bart's not the only one who said this, trust me. The other elements, then he's protected more. Think back to Andrea Pirlo before he came to NYC. He was a player you wanted on the ball a lot. He was a player who couldn't play the 6 by himself. And he was a player who wasn't strong defensively. But you wanted him on the ball. You wanted him to be that metronome. Okay. You created a team that gave him some protection, and others did running for him. In Seattle, towards the end of the run with Osvaldo Alonso in Seattle, he was that player for the Sounders. Christian Roldan became the guy who put in the work and ran for 2 players. If Bradley, if you're gonna prioritize possession, Bradley's an important part of the team. He does have frailties, and you're going to have to deal with those if you're going to get forward against top teams. Playing a central midfield of Pulisic, McKennie, and Bradley, to a degree, exposes those frailties. McKennie didn't track the run on the goal against Mexico. That happened. It's not a like for like here, because if you put Tyler Adams in that role and you're going to play the same way, we just haven't seen him do it. I don't know if he can or not. But the role that Bradley plays is more than being outrun. It's more than being caught dribbling or passed around or defensive. It's what he gives you on the ball as a metronome. That is why he's in that team. If you're going to prioritize different things, or you have other players who can do those things and give you these other elements, cool. Right now, who is it? Because it's easy to say that Bradley's no good, but who is it that allows you to play in the way that Greg Berhalter, I think, has made it clear that they're going to play? Who is it who replaces him and allows the team to play that way? That's the question. Because if it's not him, then who? I think right now he's the best option. But I would honestly, if it's just me, I'm not Greg Berhalter, and I'm not there training with them every day, and I'm not seeing everything. For me, I would play Tyler Adams next to Bradley, and then you're making a difficult decision on, do you play McKennie and move Pulisic out wide? Do you play Pulisic as the 10 and you have McKennie come off the bench? Can McKennie be that 6? I don't know. Tactical discipline, I'm not so sure. If Adams can be that 6 and be that guy in possession and play behind McKennie and Pulisic, if he can do that, your problem is solved. If is the key word in that. But if you're going to play this way, you need a defensive midfielder who does what Michael Bradley does. You do. And right now, that's why he's playing. That's my thought on it. If you're going to play a different way, that's a whole different conversation, and you might not have the right manager for that. Berhalter's not going anywhere. I think we all know that. So if you're going to play his game, you need somebody who can give you those elements, and right now Bradley's the guy who's doing it. That's all. Now, I'm sorry I'm taking over the timeline because
no worries.
Continuing on. Before we go to break, Tofka says, in the Bradley discussion, Nagbe has shown he is a better player in that possession role. No, he hasn't. That's something that needs to be clear here. No, he hasn't. Darlington Nagbe has not played as a 6 by himself in that role. He's done it 45 minutes against Montreal in 2018. That's it. By himself as a 6. No, Nagbe has not shown that. Is he a major uptick in defensive responsibility as an 8? Yeah, but Bradley's not playing the 8. If Nagbe could be that 6, Nagbe should have been in this team to begin with. But if Nagbe is that 6, that's a different conversation. He hasn't played that by himself. He hasn't. So it's easy to throw names out, but you have to take into account the way that Berhalter plays and what he wants that job to do. And I think that job is consistent whether you're getting tricky with your right back coming inside or not. One reason I think Berhalter wanted that is to get Tyler Adams on the field, but also to provide more support for Michael Bradley because he knows he needs to do that. He's going to have to figure that out. If it's Bradley going forward, you're going to have an 8 with him to do more of the work around him. That's a fact. If it can be somebody else who can give you the perfect combination of a passing metronome, getting stuck in, defensive, but can get forward, if you can find that player, cool. They don't come around every day. I don't know who it is in the national team pool right now. Nagbe has not shown that consistently because he hasn't played the 6 much at all in his career. Tyler Adams hasn't shown you the possession side because he hasn't been asked to. Those are the elements that you have to keep in mind in this discussion. I don't think Michael Bradley's a guy for this national team for 5-10 more years. He might not be the guy in the fall. But right now, the way this team played in this tournament, it's not an easy thing just to say, well, just throw anybody else in there and it's fine. I don't know if it is. It's going to be really interesting as we go forward with this because you're having more talent come through that do different things, and it's not easy. And Berhalter has to make these decisions on, is my way of playing, my philosophy, my system, is that rigid to where, all right, I have to have a 6 who does this? Or is it, I want to get my best players on the field and make a system that suits my best players? So far, it's been the former for Berhalter. Doesn't mean it can't be the latter, or doesn't mean you can't find common ground between the two. But so far, in a very short sample size, it's been philosophy, system first. We'll see where that goes. It's going to be really, really interesting, but I don't think Michael Bradley lost you the Gold Cup. So I think the overreaction about Bradley is honestly going back 2 years, and probably longer for a lot of people.
Considering he still probably gets booed in certain places when he appears in his MLS kit.
Well, that's going back 2 years. That's going back specifically to Trinidad, which,
right.
Again, blaming Trinidad on Michael Bradley is foolish to begin with. I don't know. I don't know why the vitriol about Bradley is there, but right now that's why I'm trying to tell you why I think Bradley was not the problem in this tournament, and why Greg Berhalter is going to have some difficult decisions to make about his midfield, period, because of what he wants his midfielders to be. It's not a simple thing of just plug and play, not with the way that Berhalter wants to play, and a lot of the talk coming in with Berhalter getting hired, and honestly after Klinsmann was shown the door, but when Klinsmann was hired, was you wanted a system, you wanted a philosophy. What does the U.S. national team stand for? How do they play? That's something Berhalter's trying to establish. Now, is he going to get there? I don't know. Is he going to be correct in it? I don't know. But that's what he's trying to do. And when you do that, you have certain characteristics that you need in your team to be able to deliver that. If you need a 6 to be a possession-dominant 6 and a passing 6, Bradley's the guy who's the best at that. If you need your 6 to do different things, then yeah, you're not going to be able to get that out of Bradley. And if you can convert somebody else to be that passing 6 but give you other things, cool, even better. Could Nagbe be that? Maybe. We've seen him play centrally more this season under Frank de Boer, but not by himself, not with two players like McKinney and Pulisic in front of him. Usually it's been with Eric Remedi next to him. And Remedi's going to do a lot of things that a 6 does, even if he's in a slightly more advanced role or off to the side. In that 6 role that the U.S. played under, that's different than Nagbe's really played in Atlanta. It's different than he played in Portland. It's different characteristics than what Tyler Adams has shown. So it's just a different conversation altogether. Let's take a break, come back, get into the timeline a little bit more right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. July 8th, Overreaction Monday, and I did not expect the U.S. national team to be getting people going this morning as much as the other stuff that happened this weekend. I believe we have a follow-up on a follow-up.
We do, and we also have a couple of other M&Ts as well down the timeline. But let's go with Bart here. He says he was not impressed by the Gold Cup run. U.S. M&T selection by Berhalter, Roldan, Bradley, Zardes, and others should be dropped for players who are younger and more talented.
Matter of opinion on more talented, and sometimes just going younger for the sake of being younger isn't the way to go. I expected about this kind of roster because I think you couldn't just go all young. You needed a mix, and you got that in this tournament. You got to the final. Look, were they the dominant team in the tournament? No. Were they bad in the tournament? They started slow. Did they run roughshod over teams? No. Were they bad? No, I don't think they're bad. They did what they needed to do. They went past the minimum for me. I mean, the minimum was getting to the final. They had to get to the final. They didn't get to the final. It's a failure. They got there. There's room to grow. They weren't great. Like, it's not job done. Everything's great. The national team's back. No. No. But I don't think it's bad. Go through the players specifically. Bradley, I think we've talked about at this point, like, just so it's clear, Bradley's there because of specifics that Greg Berhalter wants in that role. Period. I think in other teams, Bradley's not there. Other managers who want different things out of that position, he's not there. In Greg Berhalter teams, and you go back to Columbus as well, Will Trapp is a Michael Bradley kind of player too. They're critical to the way Berhalter wants to play in terms of possession and being ball dominant and passing dominant out of that role. That's why you need a player like that. Bradley was a better option than Trapp. I don't think there was another player in this roster. And in the question beyond, and Toodle Rahman, who is a great follow if you're not following him on Twitter, Tutul, Toodle is my name on Twitter. He went into this as well, and he said for Bradley, should be Adams already or Cerrillo. We've talked about Tyler Adams. I like Edwin Cerrillo a lot. He didn't play with the U20s. And is he that passing dominant guy as a metronome? Haven't really seen that yet for Dallas. So you have to keep that part in context when you talk about the number 6 role for Berhalter, because it's not just replace him with any 6 who plays elsewhere. It's who plays the 6 in the way that Berhalter wants them to play. That's a different group of players. Who else needed to go, according to Bart?
Roldan, Zardes, and others.
Zardes is a backup. For the national team, he's a backup. Could you go with a different backup? Yep, you could. Josh Sargent will be the guy down the road, and he'll replace Altidore too. Period. Right now, Josie Altidore fits what you want out of who you have the best. Sargent will be that guy. I wouldn't mind seeing Soto from the U20s here at some point, but he's got to get his club situation sorted out. I don't know who else right now, but Zardes isn't a problem. Zardes is just there. He's a backup. Roldan, I don't know if he's quite a national team player. He's in the pool. I think he's a great MLS player. I think he's a very well-rounded player. He's not great at anything. I think he's probably best in that role. The best I've seen Christian Roldan play, and I like Roldan a lot. I think he's a very good piece in Seattle. The best I've seen Roldan play was when he was paired with Alonso, and he did the work. Alonso sat in front of the back 4, and Roldan was everywhere and popped up in really good spots. That's the type of role that I think he's best at. Not coming in as a winger, not playing as a 6 by himself, definitely not playing as a 10. I think he is a box-to-box 8. And in this team, you don't necessarily play with a box-to-box 8, and if you did, it would be Tyler Adams anyway. So are there going to be times where you might need to turn to Roldan? Sure, but as a starter with this group, no, and I don't think he's that either. The others that Toodle said, that he specifically mentioned, Tim Ream, which we've talked about a lot, with that whole right back coming inside. You need a left back who can play as a center back when it becomes a line of 3. That's why Ream was in this group. Also his veteran experience. Long term, you need a true left back. You know, I would have liked to have seen Nick Lima played on the left in this tournament like he plays with San Jose. He's more of a right back. He's not a left back, but it's worked for San Jose because that's what they needed. There are players who can push Tim Ream. I don't think they're ready quite yet. Lovitz, I think, has been okay in his role. Would I have brought him on as the sub that he was brought in at? No, I wouldn't have. I would have went for it at that stage. Probably went to 3 in the back completely and pushed somebody in to try to change things, higher up the field at that stage where you're trying to find a goal to equalize. But you brought in Lovitz, who's more of an attacking left back than Ream. I get it. I just don't think it was bold enough. Jordan Morris, there's been a lot of conversation about. I don't think he's a starter with this team. I think he's a player who can give you something off the bench. I do. I don't think he's a starter with this group. And I don't think Paul Arriola is a starter with this group long term. I think the biggest question in that type of area of the field is Christian Pulisic going to be a 10 central, or is he going to play out wide? Because Pulisic is the first guy on the team sheet. I thought he showed that last night. I thought he had a good final, and he tried to put the team on his back and make things happen. He's the first player on the team sheet, and where is he going to play his best? Then you start making next decisions. So is it going to be central? Is it going to be out wide? Then you figure it out. But there are players that are going to push. Paxton Pomacall, I think, is a player who's going to push for time. He's a central guy. Is it going to be better for you to play him centrally and get Pulisic out wide? Or play Pulisic central and play Paul Arriola out wide? I would go Pomacall. Going to be some interesting decisions. And there is talent coming through. Absolutely. But a lot of the guys that I think we're zeroing in on are not guys there for the long term anyway. And I don't think they're even in key roles necessarily now. Maybe they're playing a little bit more than they should. For the fall, I hope Berhalter mixes in some of the U20s. I'd love to see Soto. Sargent wasn't with the U20s, which was just a debacle. And unless Sargent just needed the summer off, I just think the whole thing with Josh Sargent was a debacle. He should have been with the U20s or the senior team, not neither. Sargent should be in that mix. And the club form is going to be part of this. Like, we can list off a bunch of players, but if they don't go to their clubs and play well or play, well, then they're not going to come into this national team and play. That's another huge element of it. Paul McCall should be in the mix in the fall. I think he is ready. Weah should likely be in the mix in the fall. Sargent should be in the mix in the fall, unless he's just not playing at the club level. Soto, maybe. Yanez is another one. Adams has to be in this group, and he would have been if he hadn't been injured. Those are the ones that I think are ready now. There's others who are coming. It's going to be interesting.
All right. Here we go with Daniel Price. He says, the women's national team are my heroes. I hope I can be like them when I grow up. Super exciting to see them win in the Benz. Thought they played well. Undoubtedly earned the trophy. The Golazo by Rose was textbook awesome. Not to say Netherlands wasn't a bad opponent. Thought they played well, deserved to be there. Their goalie, I believe, stood on her head to keep the match at 2-0. And let's see. Atlanta United Red Bulls had him on edge, wanted to have him pull his hair out. He's worried about Pity and the defensive line.
Defending's been weird lately, and there's been some mistakes that we weren't seeing in May. And you look back at the way Atlanta United was in May, they were in control of games, and they haven't really been in control of games other than Montreal, who gave them control, since the Chicago match at the Benz. The Open Cup games were all over the place. The Toronto game was all over the place. The Chicago game was all over a bad place. The Montreal game, they sat back. They gave you control. Red Bulls game, you had control, you lost control, you got back into it with a crazy fight, and then you gave up the 3-2 win. Those things weren't happening in May. You were controlling games, whether you had 60% of the possession or you had 45. You were controlling the way the game played out. When you do that, it's so much easier to defend. When you're not controlling it, you make these mistakes. And they've hurt. You've had individual mistakes. You've had organizational breakdowns like the one on the third goal, and that's what we hadn't seen really at all this season. So that has to change. Now, also remember, yesterday, you didn't have Leandro Gonzalez-Perez, and you had Mikey Ambrose in the team for the first time in a while playing that many minutes. Mikey didn't have his best day. I didn't think he had as bad of a day as some have said. He lost possession too easily. It did cost you on the first goal. There was contact there, but Ambrose has got to be stronger and can't give that ball away that easily. But you had Ambrose in, you had Pogba in to start, then he got hurt, then Parkhurst came in after playing in Chicago. I don't think Parkhurst was at his best yesterday, and that hurt. Robinson and Escobar. Escobar's made some weird mistakes lately. In possession more than anything. He's being caught in possession too many times. That's got to change. For me, yesterday, the biggest thing was they lost their nerve a little bit in the middle. They were playing very brave and very quick and dealing with the press early because they were making quick decisions. Once they started to question themselves, the Red Bulls press was what dominated the match and what controlled the match. And Atlanta got caught in possession too many times and got caught in just not being quick, not being decisive. And that's going to hurt you against a team like the Red Bulls. So I'm not overall worried about the defensive line as, okay, all of a sudden our defense is bad. They have to get back to controlling games. They have to get their core group back together. And they have to not put the defense in some of these situations that they did late. They have to control games and see it out. They have to finish games better. Because, as we said, that's now 4 points that they've dropped late in games. They have to see games out better. And sometimes, when it's a draw. See it out. Take the point. In this one, you had the lead. You've got a couple minutes left in stoppage time. See it out. You've got to get out of there with that 3-2. That's the thing that worries me the most, not that the defense is suddenly a bad group.
And Daniel also says, we're really missing Barco and LGP, and Miram is now one of his favorite players on the pitch. Is so in form right now, it hurts. Unfortunate way to only gain a point. Happy we got something, but man, I hope this doesn't come to bite us when we get to the playoffs. And then he had a thought about the men's national team. Got to bury the early chances, and thought the ref should have thrown out a lot of cards to both sides. Lost control of the match. Giant mess. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Okay, we'll get to the us part in a second. Really missing Barco. I agree. LGP, it's a crazy red card. It happens, and you miss him for this game. You missed him yesterday for sure. You're really missing Barco as a whole, and it's crazy how long you haven't had Barco. I mean, it's almost like we forget how important he was in the team before he went to the U20 World Cup. You need him back. You need that spark that he brings. And when he's back, yeah, I don't think Pitty's an automatic starter. He's got to play his way in, and he's got to deliver when he gets his opportunities, and he's got to do what he does best. Right now, he's not doing what he does best. So, of course, he's not doing what he doesn't do best. It's not good enough. So, Barco comes back into the team when he's healthy, 100%. I think it changes a lot of things for this group. The referee last night in the Gold Cup final. Man, a game like that, you're going to have moments that if you take them out of context, it's going to look awful. The hand to the throat from Guardado to McKinney. Isolation, that looks horrible. The double knee drop, that I think was really cheap. But in a game like that, in a final, it's handled differently. And I think everybody knows that. It's not quite no blood, no foul, but you want to get out of there with 11v11. You don't want a red card in that moment. You don't want to send anybody off in that moment. Could you have controlled it with yellows? Maybe. Maybe you could have handled it with yellows a lot better. But out of control, did it affect the outcome of the match? I mean, if you red carded Guardado, yes, that obviously would have affected the outcome of the match. Is that what you want to see as a whole? Not really. You want to see the teams finish 11v11, and you're going to try to get it there. I think referees generally will say if it finished 11v11 and everybody was still alive at the end, then you did your job. Maybe not quite that simple, but in this one, I don't think the referees affected the outcome. I don't. It's CONCACAF. You know it's going to be like this. It's US-Mexico. You really know it's going to be like this. Just like Atlanta and Red Bulls. You knew it was going to be like that. You have to expect some of these elements of it. You have to handle yourself and your composure in these moments, knowing that you're going to get these situations. And in CONCACAF, too, the other thing to keep in mind is, look, your best referees in CONCACAF come from the U.S. and Mexico, and they couldn't work this game. And I don't think they wanted a Canadian referee to work it either, because generally you try to avoid those types of close relationships. So then you're going to be turned into referees who are at a slightly lower standard. That's what you get. So there's a lot of talk about the referee from last night. I don't think it's the most important 1, 2, or 3 factor, to be honest. Maybe I'm just jaded and just expect it in these situations at this point. But I would rather see that game finish 11-11 if at all possible.
Yeah, we can ask Howard about 11-11 tonight and discuss red cards in
that's
third
a whole
place
different.
matches.
That's a third place game. I mean, that is a different element. And if you ask Lionel Messi, he might have a completely different opinion about why he was sent off. So
Oh yeah, Tafka's in a weird place over the men's national team.
Oh boy.
Or maybe it's my opinion of the Gold Cup. I want them to settle in, figure out the pool, the system, lowercase t, lowercase s, no trademark, the players best suited for that system, and retire the old guard. A win would have been nice. Really didn't mind losing last night. Didn't mind not watching the game because he was driving back from Atlanta. He has a hard time, and this is more of a philosophical thing, hard time seeing Gold Cup as a justifiable trophy, absent cup qualification. I know it's CONCACAF champions, but still, I need help with my thoughts, Jason.
It's CONCACAF championship. Yes, it's a justifiable trophy. Like, just because you don't value Honduras or Costa Rica or Guatemala or El Salvador or Jamaica or whoever, it's your continent's championship. So, yeah, I mean, you have to win it. In this case, you had to get to the final, period. And that has to be the minimum every time in the Gold Cup. You have to get to the final. The U.S. and Mexico are the teams that should get to the final in the CONCACAF Gold Cup every time, right now, until something dramatically changes. Like, that should be the final. Is it going to be every time? No. Upsets happen. But that's the expectation. And the U.S. should be competitive with Mexico. They were competitive with Mexico last night. It's a 1-0 game. Josie Altidore had a great chance in the first half. You got to put that away. He failed in that moment, 100%. But you were competitive. You've bounced back, I think, from the dark days of Trinidad and Cuba and not qualifying for Russia. You have. That's happened. That's a good thing. All right. Get rid of the old guard just because they're the old guard. No, you need to have the best players who are the best for your system. That's the most important thing. If in the Gold Cup, you have to put the team together to get to the final and potentially win it. That's number one. I think Greg Berhalter did that. You're not going to turn to any of the U20 players in the Gold Cup, not after they just played in the U20s. You're not going to turn to untested players in this moment because you know you're going to be tested. Now, CONCACAF Nations League in the fall, you can broaden it up a little bit because you're playing Canada and Cuba. You're playing them home and away. You get 4 games that are not just friendlies. That's good. I like that. But you do have an opportunity to mix some guys in. Don't completely change everything and throw a bunch of untested guys out there together. You got to have a core, and now you're starting to establish a younger core. That's good. That's a really good thing. McKinney, Pulisic, Adams when he's healthy, Miazga is part of that core. I don't know if he's necessarily a guaranteed starter day in and day out. Others, Reggie Cannon might be part of that core. Man, Cannon was pretty good last night. Those elements, you have that core, and then you bring players into the core. You want the core to be that group as opposed to Bradley, Altidore, Ream, and the older guard. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think they're there because of what they bring to the table as veterans, and right now there's not a standout player in those positions with those characteristics to deliver on the responsibilities that Greg Berhalter is asking those positions to give you. But they're not the core of the team. The core of the team is around Christian Pulisic. And that's where it should be going forward. Now you can start to blend in other guys, and you need to in this fall, starting this fall. Gold Cup, I don't think, was the time for it. You needed a group that could get you to the final and potentially win it, and they did. They were there.
Topka says, I suppose the only value for him in the Gold Cup is that it's a litmus test for World Cup qualifying. It's the playing it with the competency that is important, not so much the winning it.
No, winning it's important too. Because if you're consistently getting to finals and losing it to Mexico, that's bad. If you're not getting to finals, that's bad. You got to win the thing. Especially if it's between you and Mexico every time. Like, you got to win it. You got to win some. So, no, I think it's a big deal. And Is the Gold Cup on the same level as the European Championship? No, it's not as competitive as that. There's fewer teams that have a legit chance to win it every time. Is it Copa America? Is it the African Cup of Nations? I don't think it's that far off of the African Cup of Nations. It's a more compelling tournament than the Asian Cup, I think. It's not Copa America. It's not the European Championship, but it is the Continental Championship. It is what it is. And you can't control what other countries are around you in their soccer programs. It's U.S. and Mexico as the two best in CONCACAF. They should be in the final more often than not, and the U.S. has to win their fair share of it. Because you get to these games, you get to the Jamaica game in the semi, which was a test. You get to this game, Christian Pulisic will be a better player for having gone through this. The other young players in this group will be better players for having gone through this. That's why the Gold Cup's important. It's not just whatever happens, happens. It is, you have to learn how to win in these moments. You have to learn how to deal with this pressure. You have to learn how to deal with these types of opponents. It's just part of the cycle. It's not one is more important than the other. It's just part of the lifeblood of the program.
Jeremy York and the folks at Impact have on-par reactions for the morning. Women's national team took care of business. Highlight of the world. Atlanta United seemed to get ahead of themselves all afternoon, cost them points. Men's national team looked better than they have in years, but spent the second half begging for calls, allowing Mexico to take the W.
They got frustrated by the refereeing. Can't do that because you can't change the referee. I mean, I understand why it happens. Atlanta United went through the same thing where it took them out of their game. But you have to manage those moments better. Because we can complain about referees all day, every day, and we often do. They're not going anywhere in that 90 minutes. So you can't let the referee take you out of your game. I don't think that happened as much with the U.S. I think both teams were on the edge. I think the referee was just trying to keep it 11v11, honestly. I think the referee wanted to just get out of there at 11v11. I had a bigger issue with the referee in the Atlanta Red Bulls match because the lack of a persistent infringement yellow for the Red Bulls, or maybe multiple, affected the way the game played out. And it gave them an upper hand in the way that they managed the match. And that just should have happened. But neither referee affected the outcome of the match. And there's nothing to blame on them. You didn't have a call like the Richie Larea penalty. That shouldn't have been a penalty from every replay I've seen from the whole thing, and gave Toronto a 3-2 lead deep in stoppage time. That's a different type of situation than not giving a persistent infringement penalty or not calling it tighter or not throwing yellows, this or that. The other one that would be in that conversation is hands to the neck by Guardado to McKinney. I understand why it wasn't given a red. I get it. I know what the referee was trying to get to, but man, that's a red more often than not. And that would have changed the way the game played out. It's also a final, and it's complicated. And that's refereeing, to be honest. It's complicated. It's difficult. Not every game's the same. You can't take a call out of context and just look at it, on a sheet of paper. It's really difficult to manage these games at this level and with this intensity. And referees have a very difficult job doing that.
Ricky Ricardo, a positive from yesterday. Justin Meram is a beast right now, and he seems to actually love being here. Just look at the wristband on this photo.
Yeah, it's very cool. He enjoys his soccer right now, and he enjoys where he's at. And that wasn't the case last year when he went to Orlando, and I think going back to Columbus, he was still shell-shocked. So he gets here into a place where he is being treated well, and he fits the team, and he's playing well. He's a happy camper right now. That's good. It goes to show you how important that the fan reception for a player can be. And it's something to keep in mind across the board. Doesn't mean you don't hold players to high standards and expect things out of them, but it does go to show you how much the support of a fan base can help a player who is going through a rough time. And Justin Meram was going through a rough time in 2018 and 19, coming into Atlanta. he didn't have a ton of confidence, and he had lost his form from 2016 and 17, where he was among the best players in the league. But he's been well received here, and it's showing, and he's playing well, and it's all feeding on each other right now. It's good.
Jarrett has chimed in and said he's not allowed to leave now.
I mean, let's not overreact. It is an overreaction Monday, though.
Yeah. John Nason missed the last call for questions in the postgame last night. He's asking, what can Frank DeBoer do now to get PT back on track? Certainly didn't do him any favors in the last few interviews. Does PT have it in him to be a vital cog in the team, or has he checked out?
I don't think he's checked out. I think that's harsh. And I think some of Frank DeBoer's comments were taken out of context yesterday. I think he was talking about the game yesterday. Period. That was the way I heard it, and maybe I'm wrong. And if I am, fine. It wouldn't be the first time. But I think a lot of people took that comment and ran with it and took it into different places that it wasn't necessarily at. I'll say it again the way I feel about Pitty. Pitty is a player who did not make his reputation and his stature on being a guy who's winning a bunch of duels and a scrappy central midfielder. Pitty Martinez is an artist. That's the type of player he is. We've seen them before in the game. River Plate built a team, and I thought our friend Gustavo in Buenos Aires had a good description of it. You know, they built a team with players around him to do that work for him, so he is the player that is giving you magic when you need it. And they understood the sacrifices that you make to allow Pitty Martinez to give you his best Pitty Martinez. Here, it's a different conversation. And one, he's not giving you the best of what he does best right now. That's not happening. That's a big problem, because when you're not doing what got you here, and you're not playing at that level, and you're not giving that type of performance in the final third where you built your reputation, well, that's not going to fly. And that's where these other things become bigger issues. If Pitty Martinez scored a goal from 20 yards out yesterday if he scored the goal that was a foot wide, if he scores that goal yesterday, are we having this conversation? I don't think so.
Nope.
He had an assist. Merrim put in a lot of work on that assist. It's a good assist for Pitty. If Pitty had scored a goal or had another assist, I don't think we're having this conversation. He didn't. And that's why we're having the conversation. The game itself yesterday also was different than a lot of games. It was intense. It was scrappy. It was all about winning your 50-50s. And Atlanta needed more help doing that at that point in the game where they were being overrun by the Red Bulls. Pitty was a luxury to have on the field at that point. So, how do you get him back? Is Pitty checked out? No, I don't think that's the case. I didn't see any elements of him checking out yesterday. I haven't seen that. Is he going to be a guy who's going to... Hold on. There's still plenty.
Yep.
Pitty, is he going to be a guy who's going to run back and forth around the field? No, he's not. That's not who he is. So, because he's not doing that, is he checked out? No, I disagree. How do you get him back to playing like he did last year? I don't think Frank was unfair in the things that he said. I think he's been correct. Pitty had giveaways and moments in the game where he was subbed before that he couldn't have. You can't have those moments where you're exposed to give the ball away in the spots that Pitty was giving it away. You make the change. In this one, you needed something different. You needed to win those duels. You needed players who were giving you that 50-50 part of the game, because that's where the game was. That's why you made the change. If Pitty scored that goal in the first half that was just wide, it's a different game. It's a different conversation. But he didn't. So that's where you get to the point in the second half. You sub him. How do you get him back? Well, you've got to figure out, one, what's not working for him right now. Why is he not playing in the attacking third, in the attacking half? Why is he not playing like he did last year? Is it not clicking with the teammates? Is it not on the same page? What can you do to change that? And if you can get there, or if you can't get there, then what's best for the team going forward? Because while you want to get Pitti going and you want him to reach those elements, if you can figure it out, great. If you can't, well, then is he worth what he's giving you and also what he's sacrificing, what you're sacrificing for the team to have him in the team? You have to make that decision. It might not be the same decision every week. Some games might be a great fit for Pitti. Other games, like this one, no, it's not. If he's not killing it in the final third and scoring magical goals and creating magical opportunities, well, then a game like that, yesterday, he's not a useful player. He's not going to help you. So it's not an easy answer. And I don't know if it's the same answer every week. That's what's hard about it. But right now, with Emerson Hyndman coming into the team, with Ezequiel Barco coming back into the team, you're going to have some different options. And that's going to create some different decision-making. That's what I'm intrigued to see. I want to see Pitti play like he did last year. I don't think this team's going to be structured in the same way River Plate was. And is Pitti going to be able to find the middle ground where he is giving you some of the more well-rounded elements of the game, but delivering on the things that he does well? Because right now he's not doing that, and that's the bigger glaring issue. I think a lot of people are zeroing in on defense with Pitti, and look, if we're talking about defense with Pitti Martinez, that something else is going wrong, because that shouldn't be what we're talking about. We should be talking about great moments in the final third. That's the more important element, and he's not giving you enough of those. That's what he has to focus on, and that's what has to get better. If that gets better, everything else sorts itself out in a lot of ways.
And then John says, I don't think he's checked out either. You said it was a question. Does he have the fortitude to take Frank's comments and direction and use them to his advantage moving forward?
100%. And again, it's not using them to his advantage to become a player who is running around and defending a ton. That's not the issue here. And I think that's what a lot of people are zeroing in on, and it's just not for me. I don't think Pitti Martinez is going to be an 8 playing a game where he's running 10 miles. I don't see that. I think Pitti Martinez is a player that you want to give you elements of that when he needs to, but more importantly, deliver in the final third. That's what these types of players are judged on. They're not judged on how many miles they're running in a game. They're judged on what they're doing in the final third. And he's not doing enough there. That's the most important part of this. But yeah, he's got the mental fortitude to deal with this. I mean, this is a guy who was booed off the field at River Plate when he first went there. Car was vandalized, and allegedly it was vandalized by River Plate fans. I mean, they wanted him out of there, and he turned it around to become a club legend. So, yes, he absolutely has the mental fortitude. Managers have said worse things, and they might say him again. It's part of the deal of being a professional. I think it's different in Atlanta because you didn't have these types of comments from Tata Martino in the first 2 years. Frank DeBoer's not holding back. I like it. I'm fine with it. As professional players, I think the players are ultimately fine with it. They should be. Because I don't think it's unfair. It's not just mean comments to say mean things. They're 100% valid. So, and that's part of being a professional, is you're accountable for these situations. And it has to be better for Pitti, but for me, it has to be better in the areas that he does well. It has to be better in the final third. That's more important than him tracking back and chasing somebody down defensively. Because that's not why you brought him here. You brought him here to score goals and create goals.
Jason Heinley on Overreaction Monday says, if we keep subbing Pitti out in critical game moments, who goes first, Pitti or FDB?
I just don't even know why the question is like that. Why would FDB go because he's subbing Pitti Martinez out in these moments? Like, that doesn't even make sense because he's gotten the subs right. Period. I think Frank DeBoer's substitutions have been outstanding all season. I mean, the only criticism you have of the substitutions is the lack of them in Monterey. And that's it. He made the right changes yesterday. He made the right changes against Montreal. He's made the right changes all season using his subs. So, like, he hasn't done anything wrong. And I don't think anybody has to go. Like, this is the overreaction. This is the whole thing. Like, So now, because 6 months, a player has to go, when, yes, you did pay a price tag for him, a big price tag. That also makes it harder for a player to go in 6 months, in my opinion. But he's had a bad, it's not even fair. He hasn't had a bad 18 games in MLS, 4 games in CONCACAF, 2 Open Cup games. So 24 games Pity Martinez has been in Atlanta for. And he's got to go? That's way too fast. The team's not failing right now, period. And Pity Martinez is not playing to a point where he has to go. The Frank part, I don't even know why it would be an either or. It's not. The substitutions have been the right ones to make. Pity has to play better. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like, there's not a spicy hot take to stand up and yell with a bullhorn. He just has to play better in the final third. He's got 2 goals and 4 assists this year in MLS games, in 18. You need more than that. You need a little bit more than that. He needs to be more of a player that opponents fear in the final third. He just hasn't been that. He hasn't been horrible either. He's been a 6. You bought him to be an 8. Not talking about positions. He's been a 6 out of 10. You bought him to be an 8 out of 10. That's where I'm at with it. That doesn't mean he has to go. And I think Frank's ability to make substitutions that change games has been vastly underrated.
And then Jason Heinley's follow-up, he says, when I saw 99 on the Halo board, I knew it was going to be a tie. Could this mark the start of the downfall of our season?
Wow. Jason. No. It's 2 points you dropped against a very good team that is a very tough opponent for you. I just don't think it downfall of the season. Jason, go back and watch the U.S. women win the championship to feel better because, man, buddy, it's okay. It has to be better to win the championship, yes. You're going to have to go down the road in the Eastern Conference and deal with NYC, the Red Bulls, DC and Montreal, I think to a slightly lesser degree, and Philadelphia. It's going to go down to the wire. These points hurt you. Got to go find more. It's a very evenly matched Eastern Conference this year. Toronto could have something to say about it, although I'm not so sure of that. I think they're in the DC and Montreal category right now. And others will push into playoff spots and all that. Get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Anything can happen. But downfall of the season because of this one? No, I don't see that at all. You need to go into the match on Wednesday and defeat St. Louis and get to the Open Cup semifinals. You need to win the Open Cup, period. I think that is something that should be a priority now because you're so close and you have a really good pathway to do it. So focus there. Win the Open Cup. That's not going to be enough for some people to say that it's been a successful year, but you win a trophy in a season, I think you've had a good year. They need to make the playoffs. They need to make the top 4 to host a playoff game, and you let the chips fall where they may in the playoffs. But downfall of the season, no, I don't see that happening with this team. I didn't have that feeling about it. I felt like it was 2 points lost. That's all.
Katie Weaver, a couple of individual Atlanta United thoughts. One, I actually thought PT was more active than usual in the first half with tracking back less so later.
Totally agree. First half, yeah, I noticed that too.
Miriam's goal was good, but some of his other decision-making was meh.
I think some of it with decision-making, and we get zeroed in sometimes about like how many times a player lost possession. Attacking players are going to do that because they're trying things that are more difficult. So I didn't really have a problem with Miriam's decision-making. It didn't come off always, but I liked that he was decisive and trying to make things happen, and he wasn't hesitant. And that's something I'd rather see. I'd rather see that than somebody who is only trying to make things happen 10 times instead of 20 because they don't want to make mistakes. And against the Red Bulls, you can't play that way. You've got to be on that edge of trying things because that's the game that they make you play. So I was okay with Merrim in that regard yesterday.
And then her third thought, Nagby's a team treasure, #overreaction Monday.
The performance Darlington Nagby put on roughly around the 70th minute was incredible. Was just incredible. And I know for some that's what frustrates them about Darlington Nagby because he doesn't play that way 90 minutes every game. I don't know how many people who could. To be perfectly honest, I just don't know how possible it is for anybody to play at that high of a level for an extended period of time. Nagby was so good in the conclusion of this match and took over the focal point of the team and pushed the team forward. He was inspirational to the rest of the team. And I love it when he takes that role on, and I'd love to see him be able to do that more because it is really important for this team. And I don't know if there's something holding him back from doing it or it's just hard to hit that level as good as it is as often as you'd like to see him do it. But yesterday, last 20 minutes or so was incredible from Darlington Nagby. The best 20 minutes we've seen from him in a match in a big moment in his time in Atlanta. That good.
Joe Bost on Overreaction Monday. First, how amazing is Tata? First year playoffs, second MLS Cup, third Gold Cup. What's next? Women's national team?
Well, everybody about Tata first said that he couldn't win things. That was the MO coming into Atlanta was he couldn't win things. So that's changed a little bit.
And then with the women's national team, didn't think after seeing the warm-up matches, I didn't think they would win, but they did what they needed to do to win.
Ellis got it right. And the national team bounced back after just kind of they were getting results because they were playing lesser competition, but not an inspirational lead up to the tournament. There were a lot of questions, and they answered pretty much all of them in the way that they needed to. So you have to give that a ton of credit. And again, Jill Ellis can write her ticket. She can do whatever she wants going forward. If Real Madrid comes in and said they want to hire her to be their first manager, or if a big English club wants to spend a lot of money for her to come in, she can do whatever she wants. You win back-to-back World Cups, and you're only the second manager to do that in the history of the World Cup, period. And you're only the second women's national team to defend their title, and she's the only manager to actually be there for both. You can do whatever you want. Anybody who questions Jill Ellis at this point, she's got everything to point back at and say, no, you're wrong. And she would be 100% right. She got it right.
Tafka says, if Barco's healthy, PT's benched. You can't see any way around it at this point. Merrim is playing too well to take off, and we are a better team with PT off the field, 3 to 5 goals with him off. And moreover, if Tito is healthy, he's my first off the bench.
Okay, so we're going to go plus-minus now on Pitti. I don't think you're a better team on paper with Pitti Martinez out. I don't think you're a better team just because of a plus-minus. One, you're going to have to deal with Julian Gressel, too, because Gressel has not been playing great. Now, Gressel has been getting hit a lot in matches. He was hobbling after this one. Took an early, I think he got rolled up when a player kind of fell on him from behind, if I remember correctly. Felt like he got kicked multiple times in every game since the international break. It's just been weird. But Gressel hasn't been write the name down in Sharpie on the team sheet either. It's not just a Barco back, Pitti benched, everything's better, done. Nothing's that simple. You could play Barco and Pitti out wide. We've seen Pitti play out wide. You could play Barco wide. You could play Pitti central. You could play Barco and Gressel together with Merrim. Merrim might need a break here at some point, and Dion Pereira comes back into it. Tito Villalba, when he comes back, he's going to push. You could see the midfield change completely with Emerson Heineman involved, because that could have changed the different pieces around a little bit. So I want to make it clear just in how I feel on Pitti. Do I think he is an automatic starter right now? No, I don't. I don't at all. If it's better for the team for him to come off the bench or not play, it's better for the team at this stage. You're halfway in. But do I think he should be banished to the bench and never play again? No, that's foolish. He's too good. He's just too good, period, for that to be the case. And he's given you too much this season for that to be the case. How many goals does Pity Martinez have in MLS play?
It's the one.
No.
No?
He has 2.
Okay.
Penalty against Toronto.
Okay. There you go. Okay.
And the one against Orlando. How
Right.
many assists
Orlando
does
was
he
the one I
have?
was thinking. How many?
4. 2 goals, 4 assists. That's what he's giving you right now. Let's compare. Because it's so garbage. I mean, he should just be benched or run out of town or whatever. 2 goals, 4 assists, 18 games, 14 starts, 1,135 minutes. Julian Gressel, 19 games, 17 starts, 1,487 minutes, 3 goals, 3 assists. Neither one are bad players. Neither one are having the horrendous seasons that you would want to just point out. Both have had ups and downs. Gressel does contribute more defensively. Pitty doesn't. That's why Pitty's numbers have to be better. And they're not. But I don't think it's as simple as just, well, the team's better with him off the field. Just go put him at the end of the bench and we don't want to see him anymore. I think that's a waste. I think you're wasting a big potential asset. Doesn't mean he starts every game, though. Not when everybody's healthy. You have to field the team that is playing the best and the team that gives you the best opportunity to beat the opponent in front of you. And a team like the Red Bulls presents a different challenge than a team like NYC. They're very different kinds of games. So you have to field the best team for that game. And with the amount of talent that you're going to have when everybody's healthy, you're going to have those opportunities. You're going to be able to mix and match. That's where you need to get to. You need to get everybody healthy. You need to get this team playing better than they have since the international break.
Yes. Shiva. I absolutely love Parkey. What he did for us last year as our captain cannot go unnoticed, but he's not a regular starter anymore this year. I feel like the team right now needs a leader on the pitch that communicates and organizes as needed.
That's usually Leandro Gonzalez Perez, but he was suspended yesterday, so it happens. Yeah, Parkhurst has, I think, dropped back into more of a rotation role, which is expected at his age. He's been very good for this team in a rotation role this season. Last couple games haven't been that. And that's where you're at. You want to get him back to where he was in May and April, where being able to play some center back, some right back, some left back, giving guys a spell worked. But that means your back line is set more with Escobar, Robinson, LGP. Ultimately, you've needed George Bello to be healthy, and he hasn't been. Is Breck Shea enough? Is Mikey Ambrose enough? Is Michael Parkhurst enough? Is the combination of the three of them enough at left back? Is George Bello going to be able to be that guy by the end of the season? And honestly, in the next 6 weeks? Those are decisions you got to make with the transfer window opening up tomorrow. Because right now, I really put the season down to, you've got 3 games to lift a trophy in the Open Cup. You want to be top 4 in the East to host a playoff game. And you could still win the East. But you've got to be top 4. Those are your things that you've got to make happen. And you've got a window to potentially upgrade to do that. Now, that's not going to be easy because your roster is full. But that's where you're at as this team. These are the expectations you have. I think those are your goals for the rest of the season. Where you're at in the Open Cup, you need to win the thing. And you need to be in the top 4 in the Eastern Conference to guarantee at least one playoff game. Those are your goals for the rest of the season. And if you have to go upgrade at left back because you're concerned about Parkhurst being an option there with Shea, with Ambrose, if you feel like you have 3 guys but really nobody, one guy for that spot, and you worry about Bello coming back to be that guy off of injury, well, then you might need to go get a left back. I don't know if you're there. The biggest question is Bello. If Bello's back and Bello is Bello, he is your starter and you look different. Otherwise, then you have to decide, is it Shea, is it Ambrose, is it Parkhurst, is it a rotation, and is that enough? And that's a tougher decision.
On the board next, Joe Bost. I couldn't watch all the match because an 8-year-old at Dave & Buster's trying to watch doesn't work.
Oh, that's tough.
At the end, Joseph gets the go-ahead. I was almost yelling at people, I was almost yelling, people looking at me, and I thought it was over. And then BWP. And then the second part of Joe's thought pattern came a little later, so I'm having to scroll. Defense giving up 8 goals in 2 matches, and let's see, there are 3 pouting face emojis. Okay, I thought that was anger emojis, but 3 pouting face emojis.
Okay. 8 goals in 2 matches. However, here's how you gave them up. Set piece, it's not from the run of play. Counterattack that you didn't defend well off of your own set piece. That's a bad one. I had a lot of problems with the second goal in Chicago. Penalty after a fluky handball, and then you're down a man. The other 2 goals are different because you're down a man. One of them was Florentine Pogba with a good tackle and then getting stuck in possession and just not getting the ball off of him. That's not a structural issue either. Against the Red Bulls, you give up a turnover and a quick goal that Royer finishes well. Second goal for them was a very good one where your backline got completely out of shape because of their passing. And in the third one, backline gets out of shape. Those are the 2, along with the second goal in Chicago, that I have the biggest issues with out of 8, which is a big number. It's not 8 similar goals you've conceded. That's something you do have to keep in mind a little bit here.
And then Joe asks, WTF is happening, giving up late winners, stupid mistakes, Atlanta United can't do these and expect to make the playoffs.
They're going to make the playoffs, I think. I'll be shocked if they don't make the playoffs. I think that's an overreaction on a Monday. But you can't give up late winners and go very far in the playoffs. And that's the worrying thing. It's not so much 8 goals in 2 games. Because as we said, there's different goals or different things. But late goal against Real Salt Lake, late penalty to Toronto, even though I hate the call, and the late goal here, that's 4 points. Late goals. That's a more worrying thing to me because those are the situations that in a one game, in a playoff, that's a problem. Now, the other side is in the playoff situations that you've been in, like the MLS playoffs where it's a one game, the Open Cup. You came back after an early goal against Charleston, and you ended up winning that in extra time after getting an equalizer late in the second half. And against Columbus, you get a 3-1 lead, and you give up 1, and you end up holding on to see that one out. That's better, and that's what you're going to have in the playoffs.
Swickster has come in this morning. On one hand, we were down 2-1, drew 3-3 versus a team that's always had our number during the regular season. On the other hand, man, we were up 3-2 in second half stoppage time. If we'd scored that Joseph penalty in 90 minutes plus, I'd feel win draw. As it was, I feel loss draw.
I don't know if I completely feel loss draw because, I picked a draw, first off. I picked 1-1. I didn't think it'd be that crazy of a draw. And I didn't think it would go down the way it did. That's why, it's a little bit harder to feel lost draw in this because a draw against the Red Bulls is a good result against a good team on paper. Not in the way you got there, though. And that's why if there's something between draw and lost draw, that's probably where I'm at. It's just you can't give up the draw in the way that you did. That's what stinks about it. But the draw as an expected result is not a crazy expected result at all. It's just the way you get there.
Swickster's Gold Cup comment, nothing like losing a Gold Cup final to a team that VAR would have put down to 10, possibly 9 players. Hashtag overreaction Monday.
I know. I don't think they would have. And that's again about how VAR works. Because in that situation, the referee's standing right there. It's not something he missed. And clear and obvious error, the referee would have to agree with that. And he saw every bit of it in real time. So I don't think he goes to look at it and see something different. And VAR's not making the call. The referee would. So I don't think anything changes with VAR in that situation. The Josie one would be more interesting with VAR about how much did the referee see, and did he see it that way of the player doing the double knee drop and then kind of the hand in the back of the head to Atlutd. That part would be more of the VAR situation for me. The hand to McKinney's throat, the referee's staring right at it. I don't think VAR changes any of that. But the beginning with the double knee drop, that would be the element that I wonder how much the referee saw.
KFC, and we are winding down officially.
Okay, good. Sorry.
KFC. I saw PT play defense. I saw PT set up chances. I see continued frustration from some fans. And KFC, this following sentence, I'm hoping it happened. Also, any chance the cup thrower had a talking to? Hashtag overreaction Monday.
The cup thrower needs to have more than a talking to. That's embarrassing. That's just embarrassing that this is happening far too often in that building. It's childish. It's a lot of things. I'm not going to sit here and lecture you. People know how to be adults. Be an adult.
Don't.
No, it's not. Stop. It's not even like there's no need to have a long conversation about it. People know it's stupid. It's a bad look, and it's an embarrassment when that stuff happens. So just stop doing it. No call deserves that type of reaction. Period. It's just stop being children. Going back to the beginning of it. First half, Pitti was involved defensively on multiple occasions. Second half, he wasn't. He got frustrated. A lot of players got frustrated. It wasn't just Pitti. But the substitutions were the right ones for what that game needed at that time. Pitti needed to come off. That's where you're at. That happens. I mean, there are teams that you can look at around the world, and if you want to go back and look at things, that in moments like that, substitute a player like Pitti Martinez because the game calls for something different. That's the professional game, and I think, honestly, that's where MLS is getting to. And that's where these rosters are getting to. And they're only going to get further to how other teams handle these situations because you're going to have more options and more talent. It's not just the best 11 players play, and that's it. And they just stay, and you don't ever make a change. I mean, that's a credit to the work Brandon Vasquez has put in for Frank de Boer to say, well, you know what? Vasquez is going to give me something different here, and I need that at this stage. That's a credit to the overall level rising, and you need different things in different matches. Sometimes you need to sacrifice luxury players, and Pitti Martinez is a luxury player in a game like that. He's not affecting things in the way that he needs to then in the moments that he does well, and he's not giving you the fight that you need to change it at that stage. You weren't controlling any possession to play it to him in dangerous spots, so you couldn't really use him. Make the change. It's a bold move from de Boer, and it was the right one.
And I'm trying to see. I think we are. Here we go. Last on the board, Elliot Beaven. Disappointed about the draw. Felt this game is a draw for both teams who had a chance to win the game.
It's one that I think ultimately with the way the day went and everything that happened, the Red Bulls will take the draw and be happy and find motivation from it. I think with the way it played out, Atlanta will be frustrated with how they closed it out or failed to. They will be happy about the comeback, so they will take a much more mixed bag of things out of it, whereas the Red Bulls will take mostly positive. It's a wild, wild game. It's a 3-3 back and forth, all kinds of incidents, all kinds of talking points, all kinds of stuff coming out of it. It was not a situation where I think either team is going to come out of this in a completely dejected mood, and that was the biggest risk coming off of what both teams came in from on Wednesday. I don't think either team has that type of feeling. It's interesting to see now. Red Bulls don't have Open Cup midweek. Atlanta does. Red Bulls will be preparing for another rivalry match with NYC next weekend. NYC has Open Cup this week. I want to see what they do against Orlando, and that's the other side of the bracket for Atlanta, so you will be keeping an eye on that. But NYC has an interesting spot here because Red Bulls will be sitting back and preparing for the Hudson River Derby and resting up, whereas NYC is in an Open Cup quarterfinal in a game that they should win against Orlando. How are they going to manage that? How are they going to manage the minutes? They're missing Matricha for another couple of weeks. They're missing James Sands for another couple of weeks. They're coming off of a home loss to Portland. How do they handle their current situation? I'm intrigued by these things going forward. And for Atlanta, you've got to bounce back against St. Louis and just get the win in advance. It's Cup. You're not trying to be pretty here. You have to advance. And I think you're going to have to field a pretty strong team to do so. St. Louis will sit. St. Louis will play direct. They're going to put numbers behind the ball. They will not be expansive, and they're going to make you come in and break them down. And they're going to be dangerous on set pieces. It won't be easy, but it's a game Atlanta should win. And they need to do whatever it takes to ensure that they do so. And then you're bouncing back to go fly across the country and play Seattle on Sunday. It's a tough stretch. And these are the moments that will decide where you finish in the East. These are the moments that will decide if you're hosting a playoff game or if you're going into a one-and-done playoff tournament on the road. And we know how much of an advantage it is to host in the postseason. So that's where you start setting these priorities for the rest of 2019. I think it's winning the Open Cup, and I think it is guaranteeing your top 4 in the East. I think that's where your priorities are right now. And nobody in the East is going to make it easy for you to be in the top 4. It's going to be a battle between 6, maybe 7 teams down pretty late. So every point matters. And that's why, as much as you'd love to be able to prioritize Seattle, Houston, D.C., and pick one and say, well, we're going to rest guys here, it doesn't really matter. Oh, man. After dropping these 4 points late in games, it's hard to give yourself that luxury. It really is. It'd be best if you could. I don't think you're going to be able to. And then it's just, okay, when do you get Barco back? When do you get Villalba back? Can Hyndman step in and give you minutes? When do you get Bello back? Can he step in and play quickly, or is it going to take him more time? There's questions. I think every team in the situation has questions right now, maybe except for LAFC. But there's questions for Atlanta, and we're going to start seeing over the next couple of weeks how they answer them. It's a great season in MLS. It's a really competitive Eastern Conference, and it's going to be a lot of fun with a lot of different storylines the rest of the way. And Atlanta's well positioned to win the thing. They're also positioned to where they could finish 6th. That's how hard it's going to be.
We're officially caught up, sir.
All right, I'm officially going to eat some lunch.
Right there with you.
Officially eating lunch here shortly.
What is on the menu?
I have no idea because I have not even had a chance to think about it. All
Okay.
I know is it was a long day yesterday.
Yes.
And I got to the stadium at a little before 9 o'clock, and I left the stadium
9 o'clock?
at about 7 o'clock. Yeah, I think that's right. Something like that. Was on with John Fricke and Hugh Douglas in the first hour of their show that they did from the porch at Mercedes-Benz. Then we had our normal pregame and postgame, and it was a wild day, starting with a great win for the U.S. women, a just incredibly crazy MLS match, and then I'm going to say a good performance from the U.S. men. Not a good enough performance, but a good performance that makes me feel a little bit better about where this thing is headed in the long term. We'll see how they handle some of the short-term issues along the way. But a good day for the game in Atlanta and in the country as well. It was a good overall day, and I'm glad we had a lot of things to talk about today. We'll have more things to talk about later. About 6:30 start time. Soccer over there. Copa America will be high on the priority list along with all the rest of stuff going on. Transfer windows opening up tomorrow where it's going to start getting wacky. So we'll have all of that for you later today with our buddy Nick Alifi starting at about 6:30. So make sure you're following on the Soccer Down Here app, on Soccer Down Here on Twitter, on Spreaker, and soccerdownhere.net. We'll be back then after we get some lunch, maybe rest my voice a little bit, get hydrated, all of the things to talk about soccer over there later. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the Soccer Down Here tweets and such on an Overreaction Monday. We really appreciate it. We'll be back later. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.